Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we're playing as the Lost. I think it's important to realize what these daily challenges represent. Of course, this is another special daily challenge, and it's for Memorial Day, and if you don't know what it is, it's a US-based holiday which tries to commemorate or celebrate everyone who's fallen in war trying to protect their country, and as such I think it's important just to kind of pay respects to it and just to realize it's there. You know, you might not be from the US, you might not even care about the army or war and things like that, but there have been a lot of people who've died in the past trying to do what they thought was right, and I think in some regard that is what we should celebrate and of course commemorate. And I do enjoy that these holidays, sometimes they're a bit more serious, sometimes they're a bit more silly, but they all exist inside of this game, just trying to remind us of what we're going through. And of course, as such, we're playing as the Lost, and we have a bunch of familiars with us, which is really in tandem with that memorial team in that sense. And you can see that this is actually a pretty strong daily in some regards, but also a really weak one in others. We can't shoot our regular tiers even though we have conjoined. Of course, conjoined is just a side effect of having so many familiars, but we basically have to rely on every single familiar that we have to deal damage. And at start that's not too bad, but as the game actually progresses, because these familiars don't scale well, or they don't scale at all, that means you're relied on their base damage and maybe some other forms to deal with enemies. And early on, sure, you know, Dry Baby is great for defense, I mean later too, but especially early on, because when he does blow up, he pretty much clears the entire room. But later on, there are a lot of enemies which might not die in one shot, there might be just even more enemies in general, or there are enemies which split into multiple enemies. So even that offensive mechanism that we have will fall off later. The only thing that's maybe the saving grace here, I think, is Rotten Baby. And basically having any damage upgrade will also buff the damage of the flies that you're doing. And not just that, you will essentially be getting twice as much damage because your flies deal twice as much damage as your regular tears would. So that's probably the only reason as to why maybe this run isn't doomed from the start, but also for the fact that we can get other items. And in this particular case, namely the Sacrificial Dagger, just proves to be the best asset that I could have possibly gotten. I never thought that it would actually have this much of an impact. I took it pretty much only for defensive purposes. I just figured this was gonna be a hard daily. We're trying to get to the chest, that was gonna be difficult enough, and us having a Sacrificial Dagger will prove, or at least provide us with some defense against those bullet hell enemies. It would just make us maybe a bit safer, and if there was just one stray shot which might have hit us, maybe by having Sacrificial Dagger we won't be in much danger. But of course, because BFF works with Sacrificial Dagger as well, it did turn to be a very potent weapon, and I pretty much relied on that for the first 7 floors or so to just deal most of my damage. Even later on I did just walk and run into enemies, and it did prove to be entirely very successful. And it just goes to show that when you really don't have much to work with, even the items that you wouldn't really think are shining will shine. And in this particular case, I think I got a really good use out of Pokego or something like that. And of course, what this item does or allows you to do is spawn a random familiar which will help you, or random enemy which functions as a familiar in some regard, that helps you kill enemies. And in this case, when you get the little Viz guys with brimstones, they can actually tear enemies apart. And if you have 2 or 3 of them, you can pretty much one-shot most bosses. And that's such a strong combo. I mean, I knew that it was this strong, and I knew it's maybe dependent on luck, but once you're in a position where you really have nothing else to rely on for your damage, you tend to notice it a lot more. And in this case, I was glad that I picked it up. This definitely isn't one of those dailies where I would not pick up certain items because I thought they were useless. You know, I might found Able or whatever early on, but I wouldn't say, no, I don't need this. Essentially, it's another source of damage, and at this point, I feel like we need everything that we can get. You know, beggars can be choosers in that sense. So I just felt like, no matter the item penalty, what's important is that we maximize our chances of getting to the end. And I feel the best way of going about it is just picking up every item that will be even remotely helpful. Even if it's just a 0.2 damage upgrade, you never know. Maybe that 0.2 damage might be the difference between you killing an enemy or not with a fly, and then maybe based on that an enemy would hit you. You just can't know, you can't take a chance, and I feel for that reason that's my playstyle, at least that's my general game methodology in this one. You know that if I was playing a regular Lost Daily, I would have a much different approach and just a different outcome or maybe outlook on how I want to approach it daily, but just because of how this one is, I feel like going that very passive route is the best way to success, because just getting to the end I feel like is gonna give me a lot of points already, and tend to not try rank for the first place, and if I did, I definitely should have gone to all of those important objectives, no matter the cost, and I should have really tried it, but I'm just trying to rank well, and I'm trying to basically to do the most optimal thing in some regard, at least the most optimal thing with my skill level and the decisions that I can make. So I feel like that in this particular case, that was maybe taking a chance, but having a backup. So in this case, you saw me trying to do boss rush, but that was mainly because of Shoop the Whoop. I thought it was going to be enough to deal with enemies, but sadly it was a champion version of boss rush. They have more HP in general, the enemies are just harder to deal with. So I did kill like a few waves, but then a stray bullet hit me, and I figured maybe I shouldn't stick around for too long. I felt I was getting in danger, and then I just popped the Joker card to teleport out. Of course, I re-entered in the boss room, because that's just how boss rush works. If you teleport out of it, if you try to re-enter it maybe via the Joker card, then you're gonna be put back in the boss room. It works the same with scroll spaces, so I guess I just used that little bit of, not glitch, but just that little bit of knowledge to put him in a bit of a safer place. But the mistake I did make was leaving Forget Me Now behind, and you might think that this was gonna be really important in this daily, but honestly I wasn't too perturbed by it. Sure, you know, it would be nice to have another floor of action, get another floor of items, you never know, you maybe get something really good or something that would allow you to break, but maybe bearing those, I would say, unlikely events, then is just something like 3,000 points on top of that, so 3,000 bonus exploration bonus, and that's a good deal. Obviously it's not something I would say no to, but I feel like if you make it to, for example, having 45,000 points, the rank difference between 45,000 and 48,000 won't be that significant. You might gain something like 5 or 6 ranks, but just because of how people are playing, or at least how the leaderboards work, I would say that it's much more likely for someone who's first to have a really high score, something in like the 55,000s, and when maybe below that it just kind of goes down exponentially. So even getting a 3,000 point score bonus wouldn't be that influential. Obviously it would help, it would kind of allow you to beat out the players who didn't have the same strategy, or maybe who didn't pick up the Forget Me Now at all, but you never know, maybe I wouldn't have finished my run on the second try of going through the dark room, not the dark room, the chest, and that would have ended up killing me, and I would have net up with less points in total. So you never really can know with dailies like this in what direction it would go, but it was definitely a mistake, I'm not saying it wasn't, and maybe it would be even a better idea to use it on an earlier floor, just the one that's maybe a bit easier, because that way at least I'm still getting some exploration bonus, but I'm also leaving my spacebar button item open so I can pick up something else which is maybe a bit better, or would allow me to get more consumables, or of course allow me to break the game later on. But in this particular case, I feel like that would have been the right choice, to maybe use it on Womb 1 or something like that, because that way I'm still getting another item. Womb 1 is still a pretty relatively large floor, it's not that difficult, and I get another chance of a devil deals, and there's always chance to get something good there. So maybe that would be the optimal way of doing this, but of course I did lose the Forget Me Now 1 floor earlier, so it was my bad, but I'm just kind of hypothesizing or thinking what would maybe be the best way of going about it if I still had it, and I think that would be a good decision. But still, I'm not too mad, I'm not too upset. You can see that my score actually isn't that bad at all. I think I finish, or at least I go in the blue baby fight with around 40,000 points, which is not that actually terrible at all, considering I have no boss rush or no hush. So imagine if I had both of those done, I would have 9,000 points or 10,000 points more, so I would be at 50,000 now, and that's a really good score. Before, if you have a 50,000 point score, that's already good enough, but before even getting that blue baby bonus that's like 5,000 on top of that, you can consider this a really good run. Obviously the biggest consequence of that is that we have the Holy Mantle, we didn't get hit as much just because we do have that protection, which means that our damage penalty is lower than what it would be usually. But also I was really aggressive, just trying to get in there, deal as much damage with my Sacrificial Dagger as possible, and for that reason I did get hit a few times, but like I said, I did take the advantage of having the Holy Mantle to avoid that damage, so my damage penalty isn't too high in the end. So I pick up the trophy, I get the like 44,300 points in total. My item penalty is maybe a bit bad, but I'm not mad at it all. Shrek bonus is okay, exploration bonus is okay, and I'm in the 21st place with my time being pretty decent. And of course that is again just because I didn't have to go to those boss rushes and hushes, and that just buys me a little bit of time. So overall, a really fun, enjoyable daily. I know that maybe I wasn't as risk-taking as I could have been. Maybe for that reason it wasn't as fun to watch, but I always enjoy kind of changing my strategy, thinking on the spot, just deciding what I want to do when I want to get the highest score in a daily. So for that reason, I feel like that's maybe a good way of going about it. Maybe it's not as enjoyable to watch, like I said, but it's definitely much more enjoyable to play, because you get to the end, you pick up the trophy, and you're just excited for you to have finished the daily in the first place. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed this one, guys, and I hope to see you next time.